What's your best kept cooking secret? I don't know if this is a secret. I feel like everyone does this. But when a recipe calls for a teaspoon of vanilla extract, I add something closer to 2 tablespoons. The people making the recipes use higher quality vanilla. The cheap stuff at the store is extremely bland compared to the high quality stuff. Don't cook a new recipe if you want to impress people. Cook with the same recipe many times until you're confident you can deliver good results. Then use the recipe. This is a good one. I cook fancy stuff for me or me and my partner, but if I have a bunch of people over, fuck it. Lemon pepper wings on the smoker or whatnot. Everyone is happy, and I'm not standing there saying sorry all the tarragon miso blackberry foam didn't emulsify quite right, but it would have been super good if it did. Sorry about that. Yes, I've known people who make complicated dishes exactly once and spend more time announcing all the fancy sounding ingredients than they do actually ensuring it doesn't suck. Every time I try to cook, I was stressed on Christmas because our main course was prime rib, which I'd never made before, and it's extremely expensive. I did enough research to understand how it's supposed to cook, and then the oven broke 2 days before Christmas. One of my gifts happened to be a new oilless fryer, so my wife said that I'd have to use that. I didn't even know how it worked. Every recipe that I found to cook prime rib that way said, cook until done. What does that mean? It's impossible to get an accurate temp reading while the meat is in the fryer, so I pulled it out too early and had to put it back in. But it still ended up being fork tender and delicious. I was just happy that I didn't fuck it up. Well, those air fryers heat up pretty fast from how I understand it, so it ought to be easy to check it a few times. Glad it turned out good. But yeah, beef can be tricky all around. I think it took me a decade to get to the point where I'm somewhat proud of my steak. Also, most things reheat better at a lower power setting for a longer time. Allows more time for the heat to redistribute. And the time difference between 90 seconds at full power or 3 minutes at 50% power is negligible, so long as you're not the kind of person who just stares at it rotating the entire time. I hate when idiots do that. It's me, I'm idiots. To add on, I find if I let leftovers cool off before putting them in the fridge they will reheat better also. That's just a good food safety practice GBH. You shouldn't ever put hot/warm food directly in the fridge. Food scientist here. Sadly that's a common misconception, and letting your food cool to room temp is not more food safe. Room temp is the danger zone for bacterial growth, so food cooling on the counter is kept at that temperature for a lot longer than food put away immediately into the fridge. As a result, it has more bacterial growth and will spoil more quickly in the fridge. Cook the steak well done to get rid of the guests. Don't forget to add ketchup. People always say I'm a great baker. Thing is that, if you actually follow recipes to the letter, know if your oven runs a little hot/cold, and know what some basic things like hand warm actually mean, it's hard to get it wrong. Cooking is a lot more subjective. My wife can cook, but can't bake anything. That may be because in her country they measure 1 cup as whatever drinking glass you have in the cupboard, and every dessert has condensed milk in it. They also like to use blenders to mix ingredients, so it's not quite to the level of French pastries. I try to teach her, and she just doesn't get it. I always tell people, baking is like a science experiment. Exact proportions matter, but this also means you should be able to replicate good quality easily by following the standard. Cooking is an art. Baking is a science. Alton Brown. I can't eat another bite. Oh look, pie. Hello there food. I can't wait to have you inside me. I'm so proud to announce I have become my grandmother. That means I never measure anything, especially in baking. My favorite childhood memory is watching my grandaunt just toss things in and make the most amazing cakes. When making pizza, use a little less cheese than you think you need. Oh, and pick strawberries by the space between the seeds. The larger the space the less bitter. Hardly a secret, but it seems to be rarely done. Put some garlic powder and Italian seasoning on your grilled cheese before cooking and boom, garlic bread grilled cheese. More of a tip than a secret, but always let your food rest when you're finished cooking it. Now I like peeling the layers off the roof off my mouth when I'm done. I know you jest, but resting isn't about cooling, it's about cooking. Some of the heat in the outer layers doesn't just go out, it goes in. Your internal temps will continue climbing for a few minutes after you remove it from heat. Also, depending on whatever it is you're cooking, if you cut it right away you'll lose a ton of juices, but if you let it rest they cool a bit and get reabsorbed instead of spilling out onto the cutting board. It also allows sauces to thicken up. Cook bacon in the nude. It will make you impervious to any other type of pain. Also, if it is done in the pan, it'll be overcooked on the plate. Me. Don't cook too much, I've already eaten. Grandma. Okay love, just a snack. Also grandma. My world famous BBQ sauce is Heinz ketchup and brown sugar. Warm it in a saucepan, it gets docker. Good to go. Works on sloppy joes, baked beans, and pulled pork. Family and friends call me a genius. Cringes in Kansas City. Oh, here is one. If you are cooking with garlic, specifically frying, add some to the oil when heating it up. Remove it before it burns. You are trying to get the garlic flavor in the oil. Then cook what you want and add garlic back near the end of cooking, timing it depending on how strong you want the flavor. Less cooking time means stronger / more pungent. As an example, here is my green bean recipe. Starts with blanching the green beans. Quickly boil them, drain them and dump them in cold water. Heat up some oil with sliced garlic, usually at a low temp. Remove the garlic and toss the drained green beans in the oil. Sometimes char them a bit, sometimes just a bit of a fry. Toss in some garlic, usually not the garlic from the first step. Cook for a bit longer. Add salt, usually kosher, and serve. If you're actually willing to spend some cash on your ingredients you'll get an overall better result. Sounds simple, but for some reason a lot of people insist on buying the cheapest version of an ingredient possible. For baking, there's usually a wet mix and a dry mix. Sugar goes in the wet mix. Stir them both up in separate bowls, then add wet to dry. I use broth instead of water in my rice. If I'm cooking beef with the rice, I use beef broth. Chicken broth for chicken dishes. And Better Than Bouillon has a vegetarian option that can be used with water to make broth for veggie dishes. Tons of flavor can be added with a little dollop of Better Than Bouillon. Duck fat / bacon grease / beef tallow. Sautéing veg. Don't use olive oil. Melt a couple tablespoons of duck fat. Cooking eggs. Bacon grease that pan first. Resting a steak. Hit it with a couple tablespoons of beef tallow. Duck fat on a resting bird is my biggest cheat code. Brown your butter. So good. Every time. If you want tender, fall off the bone meat, especially if you're under a time crunch, add a couple tablespoons of white vinegar. It helps break down the bonds, turning a cheap, thick chunk of meat into something that tastes much more expensive. Step 1. Remove food from packaging. Step 2. Dig packaging out of trash to locate cook time. When you're making a taco, put the cheese in first, and then the meat. That way the cheese melts faster and the shell doesn't get all soggy. Before cooking for someone, make sure you can actually make it. Otherwise it will be plain or a disaster. I speak from experience. My girlfriend at the time wanted me to cook for her family, but they wanted a dish I had never made before. It was a mess. Add pasta water to your sauce. Before you drain the water, reserve about 1/3 cup and add to sauce. It's salty and starchy. It will help thicken the sauce, give it a little extra flavor, and help pasta stick. Also good to melt with some butter, garlic, Parmesan cheese to have with pasta. Use salt. Triple the good stuff in recipes you're following from a book or online. Garlic, shallots, cheese, etc. I recently started cooking at home all the time thanks to coronavirus and have gotten a lot more into it. One thing that seemed obvious in hindsight. Flip things like vegetables in the oven periodically. My mother never did this, so I never thought of it, but it actually makes a huge difference for evenly cooked potatoes, Brussels sprouts, etc. 1 clove of garlic is never enough garlic. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your comments and views. Let me know what I should make a video about next. I'm just getting started, so a like and subscribe goes a long way and makes you a true OG. See you next time.